Good evening, folks, to the Rags cast. I'm still waiting on my guests. One lives in America, and it's very early in the morning for him. And the other one has to work on a Sunday to pay for all those lovely illegal immigrants. So we're just waiting on them coming in. And until then, we can have a bit of banter between ourselves. If you'd like to donate to the chat, there's PayPal and there's Buy Me a Coffee. And a load of you have been massively generous. You know who you are, and I'm eternally grateful. But I was actually going to have a list of stuff lined up here to show you who my guests are and what they do and what their channel's about and bits and pieces. I'm going to ask them a load of questions on it. I also have some stuff sent to me about Bonnie Lad, which I think you'll all enjoy. So, without further ado, who's all in tonight? Who is Steve Cray, Mousecat, Steve, Raymond Piper, Hasdak, Anglo-Saxon, Harold Stewart, all right. Ormag Pig, King Corona, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming. As I say, I'm still waiting on the guests coming into the green room. So I'm going to share first off something I picked up on today, which was this was actually from the Angry Bootneck. You can all leave your comments and thoughts down in the chat, see what you think of it. I'll let it fly. So,
ladies and gents, the US midterms are just around the corner, and I'm going to give you a quick heads up. The mainstream media is telling us that things are looking up for the Democrats. Have they? They told us Brexit was impossible. They told us Trump winning was impossible. So should we listen to them now? I think I'd rather listen to the sound of the family dog being fed into a wood chipper. Right, so let's get into this. Which headlines am I talking about? Well, here's a good one from The Guardian. As Republicans stumble, could Democrats really hold on to the Senate? Republicans just need one seat to regain the chamber, but recent failures mean things are looking up for the Democrats. Oh, really? Oh, really? They've got less chance of looking up than Stephen Hawking would if he drank a bottle of gin, fell out of a wheelchair, and was face down in his back garden. They're not looking up. Stop telling lies. Here's another one from the left-leaning Economist. The Democrats are likely to lose the House, but keep the Senate. So, what do you reckon? Now then, I think the elections take place November 8th, so it's about 5 weeks from today. I'm going to give you my prediction now. So I'm going to be using Politico for the polls because apparently they're the most trusted polls in America. But it's Politico. If you don't know, they're also left-wing biased. They're like YouGov. And YouGov.
right, folks, that was a bit of Matt's work. I've been following him for a couple of years. Very interesting guy. Very vocal and very mouthed, which I like personally. So,
very vocal and foul-mouthed. I've heard that a lot over the years. Long before I started doing YouTube.
I get called a racist every three or four times a day, even by family members. So
yeah,
water off a duck's back. Now, I picked that out from your latest videos just to show my followers your work, and maybe get you a few more subscribers and bits and pieces. Your links are in the chat, and my subs can also set your links in the chat to your channel and bits and pieces. So you're talking about everybody's talking about this. Dangerfield's talking about this November election and the red wave. Do you think it's really going to happen?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's numerous reasons why I think that. First things first, obviously we know that they lie about the polls, and they've been doing that for at least the last decade, since this culture war got started. Brexit, they said, was impossible. Impossible. Trump was impossible. Do you remember the famous video of Rachel Maddow sitting there on her show saying, even if this and this happens, even then he still can't win, and she had this really smug look on her face. And then he won, and they all went mental. And I think it was that surety that caused what we now know to be galloping Trump derangement syndrome, because they were counting the chickens before they were hatched, and they were convinced because of the media that it was completely impossible. So I think it was that culmination of those events. Plus, obviously, Trump does have a very antagonistic way of speaking. But I think the main reason that Trump derangement syndrome is such a phenomenon is for that reason. That every big pollster said it's impossible for him to win. So they were all making these grand plans. Oh, well, when Hillary's in, I'm going to do this, and she's going to do that, and he can have a job, and he can have a job, and we're going to do all this grand stuff. And then he pissed all over the cornflakes, and we are where we are. So there's the pollsters blatantly lying. There's Silicon Valley blatantly lying. There's what appears to anybody who cares to look obvious shenanigans. And the obvious, another one, which I think a lot of people are discounting, is shit posters. And a lot of Republican voters, people like me, lie to pollsters all the time just to add a little bit of spice to the mixture. I'm happy to lie. If anyone ever asks me, I go, yeah, definitely voting Democrat, definitely, just to fuck with them. Because I think I'd love to see a repeat of that meltdown, that wonderful, glorious meltdown in public, where all of them, there's loads of good compilation videos on YouTube, isn't there, where you've got these cable news anchors and these lefty podcasters and everybody else melting down. There's like a 20-minute compilation on YouTube with them all just, beforehand gloating that it's impossible for Trump to win, and then afterwards basically crying, that global meltdown. Because it was, that whole line about America driving the culture. It's true, isn't it? It's the culture and the money and the influence and the entertainment and everything that America has. It sort of drives the narrative in the whole world. So it was a global meltdown. When Trump got elected, you had Owen Jones and all the Guardian readers crying in London and Edinburgh, didn't you? So I just feel like there's numerous reasons why all the pollsters are going to be wrong again. And the only thing that gives me some pause is the possibility that they'll, how can you say it without getting banned, possibly do a bit of fucking cheating.
Like the last time, you mean?
Well, I got instantly, I think ever since I did that and got a 2-week ban on my account, I think ever since then was when I was put in the YouTube fucking graveyard. And the worst thing about that was when I got banned, it was for reading out the Time magazine article. Do you remember the Time magazine article? A broad coalition. It was basically a big long post about how, yes, we definitely did take the piss out of you all. And I just read this Time magazine article that's still out there. I just read this piece and said, how funny is that? Like, they can't keep the cards close to the chest because they've got TDS and they have to gloat about it. And then, 2 weeks banned off YouTube for that bad boy. So I don't want to talk about it too much. I'll just say, it looks to me like there's a few shenanigans going on. I mean,
I've had my week's ban and I've had my 2 weeks ban, and my next time
you're off. Yeah, you're off.
So I've learned now to speak in code.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, exactly what I've told you. You've got to. There's certain buzzwords that they look for, and you just have to avoid them. And it's not a big deal, is it?
Every time we talk about our new visitors, I'm always saying, yes, the followers of Alan's Snack Bar.
Yeah, the locals at Alan's. Yeah, you say anything, because anybody watching knows who you're talking about. You don't have to specifically name them. It's just like having a code word when you're a little kid and you don't want your mum and dad to know what you're talking about. So I'll say anything else. Or the lads who pray in the church with the big gold bell end on top. That's another good one. Just use euphemisms. Everybody knows what you're talking about.
Yeah. Funny that it's simply some of his videos. I was going to play them and see what you thought of him, because he's a great YouTuber. There's a whole pile of boys now sort of putting their bits in, and they're doing all the same thing. They're speaking in code, a lot of them.
You have to.
You have to. We were hoping to have Paz tonight. I'd emailed him a couple of times, but apparently them dinghy divers need paid for, and he has to work on a Sunday. Till half 6, you know.
They're not going to feed themselves, are they?
No. People in Britain, Middlesbrough, everywhere, all over this land, are facing fuel poverty and literally starvation, because there's no money for food, there's no money for football, and everybody's standing with their hand out like Oliver, please sir, can I have some more?
Yeah.
You know, more, boy, more.
It's outrageous. It's outrageous. The thing is, that's been an issue for years, hasn't it? That's been an issue for years. Like when I was back in England last year, and I took that job, it was, I think I've talked to you about it before. I took a job at Games Workshop. So I was fortunate when I got out of the military and I fell on my feet. I fell into aerospace, and I was doing quality control for an aerospace company. So I applied for a gig at Games Workshop in Nottingham because I fancied doing. I didn't need the money as much. I'm in my 40s, and it sounded like something that'd be spot on for me because I'm well into Warhammer and 40k and that. Yeah. So I went down there. And it was less wage, but, you know, a fun project. So it was flat rate, 30 grand a year. Not a large salary for that sort of background. But Games Workshop doesn't pay a big salary because they know everybody who works there is a fucking dweeb and they're only doing it for the love of the hobby. Do you know what I mean? That's why they struggle to recruit, because all the guys who do that type of machine engineering and stuff, well, they all want to work for Rolls-Royce or Boeing or what have you. So I went down there, 30 grand a year, flat rate. Not a bad wage, certainly better than a lot of people who are making 18, 19, 20 grand a year. Yeah. And when I was living there, I got a small apartment on the outskirts of Nottingham. And once you'd paid your rent, your council tax, your phone bill, your car insurance, your petrol, basically once you'd paid everything, I was looking at about 900 quid a month. And then in my bank, that's all my bills, about 900 quid a month. And it made me think, like, so I wasn't doing too bad. I was clearing about 1,800. So I was doing all right there. But it did make me think, if you're on a normal, first job I got when I left the military, I was only on like 21 grand, I think. If you're earning about 21, 22, 23 grand, like a normal working class bloke, didn't go to university, and you're living by yourself, you are genuinely going to be hanging out. Like, you're going to be paying probably about that 800-900 a month in your outgoings. You're going to be only taking over about 1,200 quid. So you're sort of living off about 70 quid a week, aren't you? When
you're training, you're living on base. And I think the brother on the RAF, he started off on about, it was £160 a week. But they were feeding him. They were housing him.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And that money he had was just his own, for his own, clothing and this thing. When I was working 30 years ago, before I snapped my back, I was engineer on piecework, and we were building eccentric shafts for quarry machinery. And we worked on piecework, and the more you produced, the more you made. And I was that good at it, I could walk away with £1,500 a week. Now, that's 30 years ago, Matt. Money halves every 10 years. So what would that not be worth now? My house was paid for, my cars were paid for, motorbikes, trailers to go racing. The kids wanted for nothing at Christmas. They all woke up on Christmas morning, they all had miniature motocross bikes at the bottom of their bed with all the gear, But now, £750 a week is nothing.
Well, that was what I was trying to get at when I was going to do the math there, the breakdown. The point I was going to make was, they all whinge about all these doilies and career welfare recipients and illegal immigrants and all that, and they say, they only get £60 a week or something. And I was like, yeah, but if you work full time, once you've took into account you pay for everything and they don't, you're basically getting the same money, and they don't have to lift a finger. Because that's what I'm getting at. If you pay all your outgoings and you're a single bloke, you'll end up with about 50 quid a week spendies for yourself, and that's what all these lot are getting. If you're If you just rock up in the back of a tomato wagon and then they stick you in a semi in Middlesbrough, they pay the rent, they pay the council tax, they pay the bills, they give you the phone. So you basically got the exact same quality of life, but you don't have to lift a fucking finger and you've never paid into the system.
Yes.
And the wonder why normal working class people get pissed off. This is the point I keep making. It's human nature to get resentful, which is why why people like Jordan Peterson have made that point so often. You have to drag people away from the extremes because the human nature is to get resentful. And when you're a working class bloke getting out of bed at 6 o'clock in the morning to go and carry bricks around a building site and you're fucking pulling your pudding out all day long, when you come home and see a bunch of Somalian blokes sitting on a deck chair drinking cans, and you get pissed off. You're like, why are they living the exact same lifestyle as me and they don't have to do any work? And my family's paid taxes for 10 generations. Like, of course you're going to get pissed off. It's not about prejudice or xenophobia or irrational hatred. Because the thing with all of them buzzwords is they're all irrational. Like racism is an irrational hatred. Irrational xenophobia, bigotry. It's not. It's perfectly logical and perfectly understandable that if you're pulling your pudding out 5 or 6 days a week, you're going to get pissed off when duty fucking Afghans sat on his fat ass drinking special brew all day. That is the most rational thing. I don't see how it's xenophobic at all.
Yeah, but I watched a whole pile of different ones and a lot of highly intelligent guys, and they talk about there's Dangerfield. He talks about communism and Marxism and stuff. And he says he knows all about it because he used to be one.
Yeah, a lot of them were. A lot of them were the people who know what they're talking about.
Brainwashed in universities. And then you look at the education system today. I have a video on that from Paz. And they're all radical leftists. They're not coming out and thinking for themselves. This would be good for Britain. This wouldn't be good for Britain. And as I say, the word racism comes from the early 1900s, and it's a made-up word. It means anti-white. There's Chris done the study on it, and the white population of this planet is less than 7.8%. So who's the minority?
Well, globally, I think everybody knows the answer to that. The Chinese on their own or the Indians on their own make up more than the entirety of the Euros.
Yes.
So it's an obvious fact. But I think that this is why we're in so much trouble, because there's so much power behind the word racism that anybody in a position of authority is terrified of even touching the subject with a barge ball. That's why, like I said, I've said it many times, they've proved how powerful it is, the accusation. The mere accusation sends them fleeing for the hills, because they did turn a blind eye to the torture, rape, and sometimes murder of children. And there's nothing worse than that. Everybody agrees kids are more important than adults because they're the future and they're innocent. And if you're willing to turn your back to the torture and murder and rape of children, they will turn their back on anything.
But that is the biggest scandal in Britain, mainland England, in the past 40 years. And it was covered up by governments, by the police. There's Keir Starmer when he was...
he was head of the CPC at the time, wasn't he?
General Secretary, legal. He was the head of the legal profession.
Well, Gordon Brown was the Prime Minister when they sent the circular round saying, and it's documented, we believe these girls are just making informed sexual choices, so you don't prosecute any of these people. And they were children.
How at 11 years old can you make an informed decision to be raped multiple times?
And this is the point, right? Any normal person, even a left-winger, anyone even remotely fair-minded, is well aware that a child isn't legally allowed to make informed decisions. That's why children aren't allowed to smoke cigars, drink booze, and go to the casino. So every normal person knows this, and that's what I'm getting at. Is it shows why the tide's turning, and the general public, the man in the street, really is getting extremely, extremely angry about it. And I've quoted Michael Howard many times. Michael Howard said, dull, old, middle of the road, Jewish, conservative. And he said, if you want to create the next generations of fascists, ignore the genuinely held beliefs and normal concerns of normal people. That's how you create your next generation of fascists. And that's what they've done. The reason they keep whinging about everybody getting right-wing, more and more right-wing every year, is because they're ignoring, and not just ignoring, doing the exact opposite of what people have asked for.
Yes.
The last 30 years they've been saying they're going to bring immigration down. 30 years they've been saying it. And every election they say, and people vote for them on a platform of bringing immigration down. And then you get the exact opposite. So if you just do the exact opposite of what the electorate do for 30 years, how are they not going to get a little bit more extreme?
Yeah.
Because you're doing the exact opposite of what you tell them you're going to do.
You watch the BBC a lot. You do the BBC Spews, which is freaking hilarious. But did you see the Swedish and Italian elections?
Of course I did cover them, yeah.
And what Ursula von der Leyen on her back, threatening Italy over voting in a right-wing populist party. And the right-wing, apparently, because they want families. They want Christianity to be respected in their own country. And they want...
normal things.
Normal things.
Yeah, normality. That's what they want. Yeah, and that's extremist, apparently.
That's extreme. I can't mind the Swedish party. Who were they?
Jimmy Åkesson.
Jimmy Åkesson.
Yeah, Jimmy Åkesson's boys.
They call them far right. All they want to do is close their borders because
the
hand grenades and the fucking gun violence. That's not from their own people, I
know it's mad. But well, again, I mean, he's a good example. Simon, that nice old fella who does history debunked.
Mm-hmm.
He's just a boring, middle of the road, centrist conservative, but they call him a fascist.
I actually have a video of him lined up from earlier on today, so I can get your opinion on it, because he sits there and he's coughing up a lung. But he's bang on he's bang on the nail every time.
Yeah.
This is about. I'll play it. That's red wine. That's you. The red wave. Sorry, and that is who to fix that. No, that's passes. Right.
Hello again. I wonder if anybody else has noticed that the police in this country no longer seem to be normal, down-to-earth British men and women. Many of them talk like demented social workers, generating... Hello again. I wonder if anybody else has noticed that the police in this country no longer seem to be normal, down-to-earth British men and women. Many of them talk like demented social workers, generating jargon that few of us can make any sense of, while a large number seem to be from other countries. This makes it a bit difficult for ordinary British people to relate to them a lot of the time. I thought I would give a couple of recent examples of what I mean, just to make things a little clearer. Something which I've increasingly noticed is that in reports of some alleged crimes in Britain, there is not a single English name to be seen anywhere. Police, victims, criminals, judges, barristers, all are seemingly foreigners. In the description to this video, I'll give a perfect instance of this trend, which I came across the other day. It concerns a court case where the defendants are two police officers called Sergeant Emily Joshi, that's spelled Joshi, and PC Ozan Yelkin. I'm assuming that he's Turkish and that the sergeant is Indian, anyway Joshi is a Brahmin name. They were accused of assaulting a man called Emmanuel Agbola-Kefe, who is African. The case was heard before District Judge Nita Minhas, whose nationality is anybody's guess. During the trial, mention was made of the involvement of the Shomrim, who are a Jewish group. Some viewers might ask themselves why there seem to be only foreigners in this case, and why the police are employing Turks and various other nationalities. Anybody reading the account of the case, which they may do in the link, which I've provided in the description to this video, might be forgiven for thinking that it reads as though it all took place in another country. Certainly, no English people seem to have been involved, although both the alleged offence and the trial took place in London. So much for foreigners, please.
Your
London,
thoughts?
the fucking armpit in it. Well, I mean, we already knew that, didn't we? Anybody who pays attention to current affairs knows that. The famous statistic that Douglas Murray mentioned in his book was that more than half of the capital of England is now foreign. I think it's 60% of Londoners born abroad. This is all well known. Rob Banks. That was a DJ on the BBC, isn't it? Rob Dabang. Everybody knows this. Again, that's not news. I don't even think it's that interesting to talk about, really, because it's so obvious to anybody who's been for a walk around the capital. Yeah. And again, this is why everybody knows this, which is why I'm not being flippant. I don't think it's something we need to talk about much because everybody knows it. And it's why immigration has been the single biggest talking point for 30 years. Like I said, you've had 5 consecutive general elections where it's been the biggest topic. Everybody knows there's too many, or it wouldn't be the single biggest talking point. So I don't even think it's interesting. Like, everybody knows there's far, far too many foreigners living in the UK because it's not manageable anymore. And everybody knows all the big issues are a direct result of that. In my industry, like I said, right, you do a root cause analysis when you want to find out why something went wrong. The root cause analysis is mass immigration. It's the root cause of the reason why you can't get a doctor's appointment, you can't get a dentist's appointment, you can't get a school place for your kids, you can't buy a house, there's congestion everywhere. It's the root cause of every problem. If we all of a sudden deported 2 million illegal migrants who shouldn't be in the UK, 2 million people disappear from the fucking numbers, from the books, all of a sudden, there's 2 million extra places. There's beds freed up in the NHS. They keep talking about funding the NHS. You don't need to keep funding the NHS. You need to get rid of the immigrants. They keep saying build more houses. You don't need to build more houses. You need to get rid of all the illegal immigrants. You don't need all of the big problems assailing us can be fixed by fixing one issue.
Yeah.
And they ignore it because, well, we know why. Because the deep state is a thing. The Americans always used it and it was a buzzword. And the English were like, oh, yeah, you know, when we were all normies back in the day, thinking, the Americans, they love a conspiracy theory out there. The fact of the matter is, it doesn't matter who you vote for, you get woke. And if an 80-seat majority for that big, fat albino jellyfish doesn't prove it, I don't know what does. The United Kingdom voted for the man who all the media was calling the most right-wing president ever, the most right-wing president for a generation. He gets an 80-seat majority, and what do we get? Wokeism. We get more immigration than we've ever had. Just think of that. And this is what I'm telling you. So we don't live in a democracy. I've been saying that for years, and they say, Bootneck's a cynical bastard. Britain's not a democracy. They were calling him a far-right fascist for 3 months up until the election, and he got an 80-seat majority. So if they've been calling him a far-right fascist, and everybody voted for him anyway, clearly they're voting for some pretty right-wing policies. And what did they get? Extinction Rebellion, 1 million immigrants in a year, woke, disabled roller lesbian coppers, vegan soy boys in charge of the army. So we don't live in a democracy in the UK. It's done. It's dead, and people just don't know it yet. And like I've been saying for a long time, that's why I'm black-pilled. I don't think you're going to vote you out of it. You're not going to vote you out of it. You're only going to get action when everybody's genuinely uncomfortable. So it'll take a few years yet. You probably get a genuine, full-blown commie government in 2024. And then you're going to have history repeating itself. Unburied dead, power cuts, shit in the streets, literally, shit in the streets because the bin men aren't coming, and shit in the streets because there'll be a random Somalian fella coiling one out when you're trying to have a sausage roll outside Greg's. That's what you're going to get. And then maybe in 2028, maybe then people will be angry enough to actually take some action and get someone who does what it says on the tin. But until then, you're screwed. So like I keep saying, buckle up, and try and keep cheerful, because it's going to get worse.
Our bins haven't been emptied in 5 weeks.
Haven't they really?
They're on strike. They're on strike because they want a pay raise in line with inflation.
Which we can't afford because inflation's fucking 10%.
And we're paying, if you listen to the government, it's £5 million. If you listen to Stephen Wolf, member of Parliament in the EU Parliament, he's done the figures. And yes, it's £5 million. That's in rooms alone. Feeding them, clothing them, giving them an iPhone and giving them spending money is more like £12 million a day of British taxpayers' money. And then Boris, the fucking potato in a wig, sends £100 million of taxpayers' money off to fucking Zelensky, who they actually put into power in 2014 when they started a coup and got rid of the fucking original one.
I know.
So they can get a fucking NATO base facing Russia. And then everybody wonders why Russia kicked off.
That's what Peter Hitchens said, didn't he? I mean, you can't argue with the logic. Yeah. Again, you have to be as logical as you can be with regards to these issues, because they are complicated, they're multifaceted. It's hard to get your head around it. I don't want to come across like I'm fully just going balls deep with Putin. But that issue is an extremely complicated one. And Peter Hitchens said, there's no need to make it any more complicated than this. If, when the Scottish were having a referendum to see if they're going to leave the UK, if 10,000 Chinese CCP members were seen leafleting and knocking on doors in Edinburgh, do you think we'd have a problem with it?
Yeah.
That's what happened. That's just a known fact. So again, you can be one of these flag-waving Ukraine twats, which also makes me laugh. Because they call right-wingers flag shaggers, and all they do is wave fucking flags. Rainbow flags and Ukraine flags and EU flags. I've got more flags than I've only got one I like. Well, two. Yeah. I like the American flag as well, but it's ridiculous. They've got me outflagged by a factor of 10, but that's just a fact. The whole reason England had chew with the Scottish for hundreds of years before they got into the Act of Union was because the Scottish, being chippy northern bastards that they've always been, were constantly being best mates with all of our enemies. So the Scots and the Frogs were like best pals, weren't they? That's why the English were picking up with the Scots. When you understand that history again, you realise sometimes the English were being cunty, but sometimes the Scottish were as well. There's balance to these things. That's what was going on. And the idea that what we've been doing for the last 20 years isn't going to piss the Russians off is insanity. Because it really would be the same. It'd be if Scotland went independent because the CCP went on a leaflet fucking campaign for 2 years. And then when Scotland was independent, China said, we're going to park 50 tanks on fucking Hadrian's Wall on the Scottish side of the border, just for a laugh. And you think the English Parliament wouldn't go, hang on, this is a bit of a piss take? Like, of course we've took the piss out of the Russians. It doesn't mean you're pro-Russian. I'm fucking British and American. I'm pro-Britain. I'm pro-American. Of course I'm not pro-Russian. But Jesus Christ, you just have to have a logic bone. And you can see that, of course, we've took the piss out of the Russians. We drew 10 red lines in the sand and we crossed them all. And we just pushed...
You cross this line, you die. You cross this line, you die. You cross this line, you die.
How many times they're going to tell us? And that's what I'll say. People who are like, but Russia, it's like, the Russians are cunty as well, but, you know, because I'm not going to go, anyone, we're all cunty. We're all led by politicians, so every country in the world's cunty, isn't it? But you've got to understand they've got a point. They've got a point. And any country in the world would do it. If the Chinese wanted to park missiles in fucking Mexico, Oh, suddenly we're best friends with Mexico. Oh, we're just going to put 1,000 tanks on the Mexican border just for a laugh. You don't think the Americans would have something to say about it? Well, that's what we did with Russia. And we said, yeah, we'll get them in NATO and build a load of military bases and we'll put a lot of US stuff in Ukraine. And that's not going to piss the Russians off. If you can't see that that would piss the Russians off, you haven't got a fucking IQ in double digits.
What's the police force where the Nazi skull and crossbones in the Ukraine? And they were
the Azov battalion, right? That's what you're on about.
They were actually genociding Russian Jews.
Yes, apparently there is a strong, well, the thing is, even that's in all, it's politically incorrect to say it. But a lot of these Eastern European countries that are beloved by the left when it suits them, because they just turn the brain in fucking knots. Everything they say is mental. This is why I'm not a lefty. They're not consistent. At least someone who's hard right is consistent. They're always consistent. They say there's too many fucking immigrants. The lefties go, oh yeah, immigrants welcome. Oh yeah, but not them ones. They change their mind on a whim. And that's an obvious one. There's loads of hardcore Nazi, like right-wing, mega racist people in Eastern Europe because they've got a lot of cultural background with the old Soviet states and the old Soviet Union, and loads of them are racist as fuck. But they don't see that when they're saying, oh yeah, bring everybody in. There's a nice... I saw that comment there. That was not the most reasonable response. But what I'm saying is they turn the brain in knots. Of course, there's loads of hardcore right-wingers in Eastern Europe. And yet you would think, the way they talk, the woke Guardian readers, that, oh, look, what we should do is just get rid of all the English people in Britain and just replace them all with Poles. That'll be brilliant. Well, it won't, because a lot of them are old Eastern Soviet bloc places in Eastern Europe. Some of them are the most fucking xenophobic, homophobic, right-wing motherfuckers in the world. So I don't know where they get this weird fairy story from, that they want to fill Western Europe with Eastern Europe.
Well, the Dingy Divers, about 2 months ago, it was 4 in 10 were Albanian. And then this month's count was 6 in 10 were Albanian.
Did you see that picture in Northern Ireland where it said Ukrainians welcome, and they were all Somalians and Africans and all sorts? It's like Ukrainians welcome, and it looked like fucking Whoopi Goldberg with a bone through her nose. It's like, what do you mean, Ukrainian? Welcome? What do you think a Ukrainian looks like?
Yeah, but there was the Irish reporter in the Limerick airport, and they were sending Ukrainian refugees in, and he went down to welcome them. And they said they were over 60. Not one of them was over 60. And not fucking one of them was Ukrainian. You know, what was his name?
Unbelievable. And again, I made a video about this. Like, look at the example we've set for the last 25 years. The example we've set is, if ever you get a bit uncomfortable, or you've got a bad government, or you're a little bit unhappy, just fucking move. That's the example we've set. If we had the attitude that we've encouraged for everyone, not even people that are from war zones. This is the other annoying thing. These ignorant, woke, stupid, lefty, hand-wringing soy boys. Oh, they're fleeing war. If you look at the numbers, most of them aren't coming from war zones. You've got people from Morocco, Algeria, Pakistan, India. None of these places are at war, you silly bastards. And they say, oh, bring them all in, oh, they're all fleeing war. But even the ones that are fleeing war, we shouldn't be encouraging them. We shouldn't be saying to a fighting age man, just come and live in England. Because...
One second, Matt. Would somebody throw Toffee Matt's link in? They were saying you were brilliant earlier on. They really enjoyed it. Now, Matt he usually does a Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. He used to do it nearly every night, but it was getting a bit too much. Plus, the man has to work. So
I've been working day shifts, so that's why I've had to put a stop to that.
And he makes standalone videos too, and they're literally hilarious. I'm sitting here and my guts is sore laughing at it because of the things he says, you know. And there's no errors and graces with him. He just calls a spade. But he covers the BBC News a lot of the time, and the hypocrisy of the BBC. And he just cuts them in ribbons.
I hate the BBC. Honest to God, It's funny, right? Because, see, this is going to skate a bit close to the bone, but I was having a pint with my missus last night, and she said to me, I don't understand all of that. And she said, if you could kill someone, I mean, would you even want to? And I was like, yeah. She was saying out. She said, like, if I was like the supreme ruler and I could kill people, she said, I can't actually think of anyone I'd kill. And I'd be like, fuck me, my list. You can see how right-wing dictators end up with the free helicopter rides, because I could think of fucking loads of people. But the point I was going to say there is the ones that are a real problem case, it seems like there is not really any alternative. And again, I have to watch what I'm saying because you're getting close to the bone here. But the point I'm making is, when you're in Afghanistan, when you're in Iraq, all the war zones I used to go to, you have what you call a threat assessment pyramid. And they used to tell you, top tier Taliban are the ones who are so radically indoctrinated that they're willing to do anything. And the bottom of the pyramid, the ones obviously, because that's the numbers as well, most of them are like conscripts. They used to call them $10 Taliban.
The pack of cards analogy, the kings, the queens.
Yeah, exactly. Most of them aren't true believers. Most of them are doing it for money, $10 Taliban, they do it to feed the kids, they do it for an easy buck. But the ones at the very, very top, you can do nothing with them. They just say kill or capture, because you can't do anything with them. It's indoctrinated true believers, willing to commit jihad, willing to blow themselves up, willing to do anything. People on the far left, they have the same pyramid. The ones who are just misled, which is the majority, thankfully, you can reach them. The ones that are misled, the flock. But the ones at the very, very, very top, this is why Thatcher and Reagan turned a blind eye to Pinochet, because they knew if you've got someone who is a dyed-in-the-wool, true believer, indoctrinated radical, and will always be an indoctrinated radical, there's only two things you can do with them: kill or capture. And that's why Reagan and Thatcher went, nothing to see here, when Aldo Gusto was taking them for a fucking cheap flight across the sea. And this is why we're in a real bind, because the ones who are running things behind the scenes, who you don't vote for, you can't elect, and you're not allowed to vote for, they are radicals. Yes. There's nothing centrist about these woke lunatics who are running the judiciary and the courts and the Home Office and the civil service in the UK, which is why I keep whinging about it, saying we're done already. We're already dead, and we just don't know it yet, because the people in charge are not—they're not centre left. They're true believers in this project, where they want to. Sorry, go.
So I describe more live chats and all. If you look through the WEF members list, Klaus Schwab's gang, the top names come up: Jacinda Ardern, Macron. The Canadian boy who likes blackface. Trudeau. I call him Trudeau. Liz Truss is on the list.
Of course she is.
After we voted for Brexit, the main reason for voting for Brexit was immigration into Britain. Last year alone, they issued 1,100,000.
Yeah, over 1 million. It was the first time we'd ever broke 1 million in it.
Yeah. Yet Boris, the fucking potato in his manifesto said there was no mention of fucking Green New Deal. There was no mention of fucking banning fracking. There was no mention of fucking not drilling for our own oil. He said, if you land here illegally, you will not be allowed to stay. You will be sent directly back. And he knew he was lying, because he had already signed up to the European laws and conventions on human rights. So you can't send it back.
Like I said, we're toast. We're toast. I'll tell you what I'll have a rant about: the monarchy. So this is what has made me convinced that we're just fucking doomed, and the powers that be are doing whatever they want. Not just the fact that for 30 years the biggest issue's been ignored, but when they have a clear mandate and a majority to do whatever they want, they do the exact opposite to what they get told. And they don't play at the base, and that has always stunned me. And that's what turned me in the last 2 years. I voted for Johnson, And in the last 2 years, I'm now the black-pilled, hardcore, I'll never ever vote Conservative. The party needs to die and a new right-wing alternative needs to appear, because they just keep doing the opposite of what they're told. And for some reason, pandering to the opposite of who they should be. Because you always hear the mantra in America, they always say, play to your base, play to your base, Trump, play to your base, Trump. In England, they play to the people who despise them and will always despise them no matter what they do. And that blows my tiny mind. Prince Charles today, gobbing off about, oh, yeah, climate change. And you go on Twitter and you see that sausage-fingered fucking twat bastard talking about, oh, yeah, climate change. It's like, listen, the people that keep the monarchy on the throne and the people that have always kept the monarchy on the throne are the fucking monarchists. And the people who want to chop all the heads off are the commies, the socialists, the wokists, right? And this thick bastard is going out now and siding with them on every issue. And that's exactly what Boris Johnson did. He got an 80-seat mandate by playing to his base. And then the second he got power, he spent his whole time trying to fucking pander to the communists, the climate lobby, the immigrant types. It's like, what you doing? They hate you and they always hate you. But Charles takes the piss now. To hear Charles talking about climate and immigration, it just makes me think, is he suicidal? The only people that have kept the monarchy on the throne are the royalists and the commies. They ain't royalists. Does he think he's going to change but dyed-in-the-wool, brainwashed, indoctrinated commies into staunch royalists by talking about fucking climate change? He is a useful idiot, if that's what he thinks, because they'll take all of his assistance when it comes to pushing through the commie ideology. And then the second they get power, his fucking head's on the chopping block. Yeah. So just like Boris Johnson, Charles appears to have the IQ of a fucking pork pie. Yeah. And I cannot believe that they do it. I cannot believe they ignore the base, trying to reach out to the one group of people we know will always despise them no matter what they say or do. That blows my mind.
Liz Truss was originally a Liberal Democrat and an anti-royalist. She wanted to get rid of the royal family. There she is, shaking the hand of the Queen when she's getting put in as the Prime Minister. Yeah. She's a Remainer. It would boil your fucking whiz, you know.
She's a Remainer. She's a Remainer. So, like I said, I think we're done. I think it's going to just devolve continually. You're going to get more immigration. You're not going to. Do you think you're going to have less next year? No. 1 million. Do you think we're going to get less next year? What about the year after that? What about the year after that? It's not going to get better. Nothing's going to get better. And it makes.
There's the. Do you watch Irish politics at all? Republic?
Sometimes, yeah. I try to keep me going on all of it.
Well, the guy we call the Dandy Gandhi signed them up to the 2040 agenda, where they want to bring in 1 million Black Africans and 1 million Chinese. The Chinese have bought up nearly a whole county in the Republic of Ireland to build a mega Chinese city. All underway. And as we were talking about earlier on, the birth rate there 30 years, 40 years ago was like between 11 and 15 kids per family. It's now 1.1. It can't sustain a population 1.1. You know, Britain is 1.2. If you're talking about white British people, it's 1.2. If you're talking about the whole of Britain, there's certain factions that are having 5, 6, 7, 8 kids, and they have got 3 or 4 wives. You know, the followers of old snack bar. So,
I know.
That's why I was hoping Paz would come on the night, because he could have talked us through the problem in Wales. Is it Plaid Cymru?
At Cymru, yeah. The thing is, England have always, I mean, again, I'm biased because I'm English. I might be a chippy northerner, but I'm English. To me, there always seems to have been a more commie streak in the outliers. Wales, Scotland and Ireland have always flirted with it, haven't they? Because it's against what they see as the centralised power structure of England. They see as being the institution, the monarchy, the patriarchy, the power. So the outlying places have always been flirting with it more, aren't they?
Yeah.
And the commies, basically. So I find it harder to get as bothered about Ireland. I know that makes me sound like a stereotypical English twat from 3 centuries ago. But basically, they've always flirted with it. So a large part of me just thinks, well, good enough for them then. Like, fuck them. I mean, so to me, I've made this point loads of times. The English would be quite within their rights to just get every single illegal immigrant and do what DeSantis did, put them on a bus and send them to Scotland and Wales. Say, you want them? Our people voted and said, we don't want them. 80-seat majority, we do not want them. If it was just England, it'd be fucking 90% conservative. It'd be like, we don't want them. And you've told us you want them. So why aren't we within our rights to put them on a bus and send them all to Scotland and Wales? Oh, yeah, and stick them on a ferry and send them to Ireland as well. Why not? You guys say you love them all the time. We don't. So that sounds fair to me. But they want to have the cake and eat it, don't they?
Well, we can't mention certain things, but because of Suzar, and we all know how we love Suzar. I know that boils your piss.
No, it does. Fucking slut.
But Jimmy Cranky and Drag was saying that she would gladly take these refugees at Dover.
Exactly.
But she wanted an extra £50 million from the British government to deal with them. Their education's falling apart. Their hospitals are falling apart. They're dying earlier than anybody else in Britain. I think it's 60.
Everything. Because the commies. Of course they're fucked. When have they been able to balance the books? The whole reason they're in a union with England is because they can't balance the books. When you talk to these ignorant commies, because they never know any history, they seem to be acting as if it's the same in Ireland. They basically act as if the English invaded Dublin in like 1940 and Scotland did like 1950. No, what happened is Plantation of Ulster, the Irish problem was over 500 fucking years in the making. It was long before the Plantation of Ulster. Yeah. And the Scottish problem has been there for centuries. Like I said before, long before the Act of Union. And the main reason, as Robbie Burns put it, that they joined in a union was the English, was because they were bought and sold with English gold. It was because those useless twats can't run a piss up in a brewery, and they've been shit at running with the purse strings since fucking time immemorial. That's why they joined into a union with the English. We didn't invade them and fucking take over Edinburgh with spears. We bought them because they went bankrupt as fucking usual. So again, like I said, the up and down, up is down, left is right. The commies having the whip hand for the last 4 or 5 years has made me break all those bonds of fellowship. Like I'm a lot more lukewarm on the union now as well. Yeah. And I was always a unionist. But it's like, listen, if the Welsh and the Irish and the Scots want to flirt with communism, fucking go away then. Go and do it. And in 10 years' time, when you're all eating fucking grass, when they're all eating penguin sandwiches outside Edinburgh Zoo, then we'll talk and see if you want to come back in. Because the simple fact is, if you know anything about human fucking history, only one group of people can manage the purse strings, and it ain't the commies. Point me to commie country. Venezuela, they've got the biggest oil reserves in the world, and they're eating fucking grass. That's how good those people are with the purse strings. So let them, seriously, I'm getting to the point where I'm sort of agreeing with David Stark. You're like, instead of railing against the Scottish, constantly like, oh, come on, lads, stay in, come on, we're all unionists. No, I'm like, you know what, fuck them. If a large enough percentage of them is happy to vote for the commies, let them go. I'm really losing patience with the Scots. Yeah. And that's how I'm. So, yeah, I don't want to sound like a callous colonial prick, but I don't get as annoyed about Ireland because I think they've been flirting with that shit for decades.
42 is a good friend of mine and our local historian, and he knows more about the history of this island than anybody I've ever met. Dates, times, Dublin was actually a Viking slave port along with Limerick. They enslaved the Irish people and used them as ports to ship them all around the world. That's long before the Ottoman Empire came and enslaved Irish and English people. Where's our reparations?
Oh, fucking, yeah. Well, I mean, I did point that out. The Plantation of Ulster is this big date where he talks about 1607, 1609. But it was way before that.
1602.
They invited mercenaries over before centuries before that. That problem's 1,000 years in the making, fucking longer. So yeah, it's bollocks. But what I'm getting at is, in current circumstances, with all the nations in the UK, the British Isles, I really find it hard to get too worried about the Irish, because they've always flirted with it. I mean, they deny it and they say they were neutral in World War II. Some of them were helping the English, but some of them were helping the fucking Jerrys, and that's just a fact as well.
That there is factually incorrect, because in this entire island of Ireland, north and south, 130,000 men went to the Second World War. There was only 30,000 Northern Irish men went, because our population was that small. The rest were made up of Irish Republican people.
Right.
And when they came back, their own people spat on them and burnt them out of their homes because they fought for the British.
Right.
But there was no work in Ireland, so they could go and get a wage and feed their families. Basically, that's what it did.
I always thought, almost like current events, it was exactly how it was during the fucking Napoleonic era. Some of them would end up fighting for the British, but some of them would fight for the fucking enemy. And again, so with Irish history, I'm not as worried about it as I am England, because I feel as if it's a problem that we don't really deserve as much as places like Scotland, Wales, and Ireland.
It was less than 2% that started the 1916 uprising in Ireland. Less than 2% of their population. The rest were all quite happy. The other 98% were all quite happy with the way the status quo, with the way things were.
Well, that's another argument for what everybody talks about, though, when they're talking about extremists. Like, when you get people saying, oh, yeah, these wokeists, and they're like, oh, it's not really a problem because there's only like 10% of people that are hardcore communists. It's like, yeah, but every single major event in human history, it's only been a small percentage. Same with the Germans or anywhere else, right? It's not, you don't have to have 65% of the population on side. You just need to have a large, significant minority. And that's just the way of it. Like I said, I'm not as worried about the rest of the nations of the British Isles, because polling wise, England seems to have been the only remotely sensible fucking voting bloc for the last 30 years. So I know it makes me sound like a callous prick, but I find it hard to worry about. Yeah.
Craig's asked a question there. As far as I know, the Republic of Ireland, the last British military base there, was disbanded just after the Second World War. It's called Fort Dunree, which you can still visit today. And it's an estuary. And they caught the Nazi U-boats, sailed them up that estuary. The British came in and stripped it of all the science and all the technology they had, and then sailed it back out into the sea and scuttled it. So there's a big graveyard of German U-boats off the north of Ireland, just off Donegal. If that answers your question, Chris. So you can still go and visit that museum. So it's bloody good too.
You know what you have made me think about then? So obviously you're an Ulsterman, so I'm assuming you're a very, very passionate unionist.
Yes.
What do you think realistically would happen then if the British sort of, well, let's say Plaid Cymru get their way, Wales goes on their own, Scotland goes on their own. Do you think England would still keep a toying with Northern Ireland, or would because it seems like they've ditched them already. Like, ever since they left the EU, they basically just fucked Northern Ireland off, didn't they? All of these.
Well, they do. We had a border on the land. It wasn't an actual border. It was between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. You can actually see the difference. When you're driving down the road in Northern Ireland, there's white lines everywhere. 60 miles per hour, 70 miles per hour, 40 miles per hour. As soon as you cross that invisible border, them road markings are yellow, and it's kilometers per hour. And you have to pay for everything in euros, which wasn't too bad 4 or 5 years ago. because you went to Fort Dunree and they asked you for so many euros and you handed them a £20 note and they give you 25 euros back. So it basically,
Yeah.
you know, quids in.
Yeah. It's just, I just find it fascinating. It seems like it's an extension of what Boris Johnson and King Charles are doing, i.e. not playing to the base. It seems to me like because Northern Ireland is more conservative than Wales, Scotland, they're just taking the piss out of you and they're just assuming they can take Northern Ireland for granted and they'll always be the boys that are on side. So fuck them.
And saying that, Matt, yes, they did flood England with the Third World. They knew the people of Ulster wouldn't stand for that. So what they did was do it by stealth. And they come in through Ireland and then they come up here for work, but they're not coloured. They're not Africans. They are Eastern Europeans. And they start these wee enclaves, you know, and they separate themselves from the rest of the community. A lot of them come up here, and we've had ones, and they go down to, you know, the Citizens Advice Bureau, which tells you the law. And you can guarantee every
There's all the free shit you can get.
Yeah. Every Citizens Advice Bureau in Northern Ireland has a volunteer from Eastern Europe. And they know the fucking laws here inside out. Now, I was in Little's one night and there was a woman, and you can have your big trolley for your mommy, and then she had 3 wee ones with her and they had all these wee tiny trolleys. I love kids. I've got 5 of them. And they're walking down the aisle side by side and all, and I was just looking to get in and out and do my thing. And I said, "Excuse me, boys, can I get past?" Next minute, this woman starts fucking running at me in some foreign language. I says, "Would you shut the fuck up?" I says, "If you're in fucking, we speak English here, you know." And she shut up. I'm on about my business. Now, as you know, they call me Ragnar Ironspear and me wheels, you know. So I have a disabled parking badge. So I'm in the disabled parking spot. And I see this big 8-seater Mercedes van looking thing. And this fucking Eastern European woman, like I'm talking about this tiny mini skirt, you can see the fucking Mountain Dew. And these 3 kids trotting along behind her. She climbs into this bus with a disabled badge on it. And you can guarantee she's claiming PIP.
Everyone. How many times have I talked about that? Have you seen the numbers of how many people are disabled in Britain? Fucking, if as many people in Britain were as disabled as they say they are, you couldn't go for a walk for 10 seconds without tripping over about 11 spastics. You couldn't go 10 foot without catching your foot in Stephen Hawking's wheelchair. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I would go so far as to say 9 out of 10 people claiming disability in the UK are fucking swinging the lead.
Yeah.
There's no way. It's somewhat like 20% of the population. Yeah. And the actual number's going to be about 2. I.e., you're disabled, you're in a wheelchair. Yeah, you're disabled. We should all be pitching in to help you. But fucking everyone's disabled now. It's unbelievable. 20% of the country. In fact, it's higher, isn't it? 25. Yeah. Well, it's basically 1 in 4. 1 in 4. So if you go to a football match, 25% of the stadium are on fucking wheels. Bullshit. Yeah. It's nonsense that they all take the piss. But like I said, and that's why I'm mega conservative as well. On some things, I'm socially liberal, and on some things, I'm very conservative. And the 2 ones I am is the welfare state and immigration, because ultimately, there is nothing that fucks working class people more than those 2 big issues. Yeah. You can't get a council house, you can't get a school for your kids because posh people go private. You can't use the NHS. You pull your pudding out, you work your ass off, you pay your taxes, and you get nothing. You get nothing because like you're just paying for everybody else.
Like that old joke, I can't mind who said it. I think it might have been Lenny Henry or Billy Connolly.
It can't have been Lenny Henry if it was funny, because that fucking bloke's about as funny as finding a lump on your bollocks in the shower.
Well, he talked about fucking racism. Yet if you notice him, and was it not the 9 o'clock news? He had the white wig on and the white long tash down to here, and the sling tags. Oh
yeah.
What?
Well, they can do it. Lenny Henry's just to prove that black privilege is a thing in London, in Britain. It's the exact opposite of the truth. There's no such thing as white privilege in Britain, because the woke run the state. So there is black and Pakistani privilege. If you're an ethnic minority in Britain, you can get more benefits, more free shit. You go at the top of the list for free houses. You can even torture and rape little kids and they'll ignore you. If all the people grooming and torturing little kids were ginger blokes from fucking Leeds, I dare say that they got nicked in the first week. So don't tell me about privilege. And the second best one is Lenny Henry, because if he was white, he'd be working in McDonald's. Well, he wouldn't be working. He's Lenny Henry. He'd be sitting on a disability. But there's no way he's got the talent to be a fucking comedian. He's a comedian because he's the right colour. That's just a fucking fact.
I do have a question for you. I was hoping to get Paz on tonight. Understandably, he has to work, but it's not his fault.
Yeah.
He works for his father-in-law, so he's sort of obligated. When he has to go, he has to go. I've been trying to get Simon Sideways on for a while because he travels here all the time. He loves the place, and he especially comes across for the 12th of July parades and stuff.
Yeah, he's a good lad. I talk to him regular.
He was in Ballymoney and he went live, and I was in his live chat, and I says, "I'm 3 minutes up the road from you," and he went, "Where are you?" I says, "I'm in Ballymoney." He says, "How do you know I'm in Ballymoney?" I says, "I live there." I know where you're standing. And the Reverend Mother-in-law was with him. And he says, "This place is unbelievable." He says, "I haven't seen the person of colour my whole time here."
Yeah. Well, like you said, Northern Ireland, they wouldn't have stood for it, would the English? There's a lot of these woke lefties live in the big cities, and that's where it started. That's why, again, they don't pull it in little out-the-way places. Hartlepool, there was nothing like that in Hartlepool in the 90s. Excuse me. It was always the big cities: Manchester, London, Leeds. It's just the way it's gone. So they've done it by stealth. When they can't get it done by being about as subtle as a boot in the bollocks, they do it by stealth, don't they?
I know. I'm not too sure if it works the same as yourself, because you were in the Marine Corps. One of my best mates, my archery coach, was in the Marine Corps. The man has 8 kids. He broke his back and couldn't work again. And then the operation they did on him, they actually cut a spinal column. The spinal fluid went up into his brain. He had to be rushed to a hospital and have a hole bored in his head to drain it out.
That's very NHS. That's very NHS, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do a surgery on you, fuck you up even worse. Yeah, cheers.
Yeah. Like myself, they fixed my back. Now, if I had been in America, I went to see this specialist. He says, if you went to America for this, he says the operation's about £40,000. He says they'll put in 2 titanium discs, and they'll put in this hard gel filled two titanium vertebrae, and they'll put in this hard gelled special Kevlar material as a disc. And he says 97% of people that have that done in America go straight back to work. I got the fucking bone out of some old dead guy who had the same blood group. It lasted 3 months before it broke, and I ended up a cripple.
Yeah, well, don't start me ranting on the NHS now, because I'll be here another half an hour. But this is what I'm telling you. People, silly lefty bastards, go, NHS, fuck the NHS. This is what I've talked about. You said, oh yeah, in America it would have been 40 grand, fucking hell. Yeah, it would have cost you 40 grand and you'd be doing fucking backflips down the street 2 days later. What would you rather have? A thing that you pay for that actually works, or a thing that you don't pay for overtly, you do pay for it, or you don't pay for it and it fucks you up even worse? I mean, call me a bluff old traditionalist. I'll just take the one you pay for, thanks. My mate Chris Lockie, who's a Marine, who's just moved out here, and he said he couldn't get a doctor's appointment to sort his fucked out knee up for weeks. Everything he tried, no, not happening. He's paid for private, so he just wanted a referral to go to boot, but they couldn't do it. He come out here, he went, I've had enough of this. Got his missus to ring the doctor. He was in the next day. They said, oh yeah, that was a Thursday, we'll do your op on the Friday. What would you rather have? These people who go, yeah, but the NHS is free. Fuck the NHS. You pay for it anyway. The only difference between the NHS is you pay for it and it doesn't work. Here you pay for it and it does work. The NHS is just there to siphon more money off you and pay for people that have never paid a penny into the system. So fuck the NHS as well.
Britain is the only place. My employer at the time, I broke the back racing motocross one Sunday. It was actually a charity event for a guy that ended up paralysed. And that was the irony of it. I ended up paralysed. But I got up from the accident and I thought, there's something really wrong here. That doesn't feel right. And my legs kept on going from under me. But I drove home with the missus and the kids in the car after I'd been in the St. John's ambulance for about an hour. And they fed me gas and all. It was all right. Drive home. The kids unpacked all the bags and everything, bits and pieces. And I went and lay on the sofa. 2 hours later, I got up to go to work, so I worked nights. And my legs kept on going and then I had to take some time off. And then I went back to work. Then I had to have more time off. And the boss says, tell you what, we're going to pay private to send you to a specialist to see what's wrong with you. £140 for 3 minutes. And he says, lean forward. And he put his hand on my back and he went, that's broke. You'll need an operation. So my employer wasn't going to pay for a private. So I had to then go onto the NHS waiting list. And I waited for 6 to 8 months to get operated on. And do you know who done the operation on me? The same bloody man that told me my back was broke. It's unbelievable.
I'm going to say Michael J. Fox do the operation on you. It's shocking, man. Like I said, I could talk about that all day as well. I hate the NHS. It's totally useless. It's all right in the 80s.
Yeah.
We're a long way from there now. You can't invite the whole third world in over a 30-year period and still expect it to work. It worked when the population was smaller and 95% of the people who used it were paying into the system. And now they aren't. So fuck the NHS.
My mother was a midwife and a staff nurse all of her working life until she took ill. And we were kids at the time. And they all wore, I have pictures of my mother graduating from Belfast, the Royal in Belfast. She had the big black coat on and the wee white thing and the black bicycle with the basket on the front and the medical bag. And she went to people's houses and delivered babies. She rode up and down the Falls Road, delivering IRA terrorists, as we used to joke about. But that's when it was the NHS.
Yeah.
If you were a working man and you went into hospital, you were treated first because you had a family to feed, and yet they wanted you back out and working again.
And you're keeping the lights on. Yeah.
Now you're on a waiting list. I have a mate that's ex-army. He's waiting on a new knee. He's been waiting for 3 years.
It's not fit for purpose.
He'll be waiting for 3 years. Yes.
Yeah, it's bollocks. It's like I said, it's not working. So just get rid of it.
Here's one.
Police aren't working. Britain's fucked. The police aren't working. The health service isn't working. Public schools aren't working. The universities aren't working. What works?
Husky makes a good point there. Ibuprofen is 80 pence in the shops, but the NHS pay £10 for the same packet.
That's fucking typical. Typical, isn't it? It's funny. It's so fucking daft. It's funny. My mate used to sell printers, and he told me that. He was a salesman. He said, like, if they sell a printer to, like, Microsoft, they're 800 quid. If they sell it to a school or the NHS, it's fucking 10 grand.
Yeah.
It's like, they're totally useless. So you just have to laugh at the absurdity of it all.
Yeah. But it's like the American government in that film, the Humanity, who pays £10,000 for a fucking toilet seat. You know, they're slush funding the money. But I had a question for you about the border and the illegal immigration into America. It's all right if you're coming from Mexico and all these different places, but if you're coming from Cuba, they automatically return you. Because these people have actually lived under freaking communism. And if they get in and get citizenship, they ain't voting Democrat.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense, doesn't it?
Important to vote. Yeah.
Yeah. No, they are. It's bollocks. It's bollocks. The reason it increased as soon as Biden won the election was because they want illegal immigration, because they're importing the next generation of voters. Everybody knows that. It's why, and commies always do it because they always cheat. It's why the SNP have started letting kids vote and foreigners vote.
Yeah.
Because they can't win a vote, they can't win a democratic vote.
Yeah.
So they cheat. That's just cheating. When you say, oh, we're just going to drop the voting age by a few years and we're just going to let foreigners vote, that's just cheating.
Yeah, but what the kids actually know, if you look at the education system now, there's the likes of Sinn Féin and the SNP, and Plaid Cymru, all far left communists, want to drop the voting age, right? And they want to give the legal voting rights for people that come here, but you have to gain citizenship. So the Sinn Féin councils are handing out fucking citizenships like sweeties.
Yeah, cost away. Yeah, cost away. I've used that analogy loads of times, and I always say this. If anything, they should put the voting age up.
Mm-hmm.
You can't really, because we need 18 for the military and a lot of things, and you can't say someone's eligible to fight in a war but can't vote. So we can't really do it. But if you were just going off the maturity of the electorate, it should be put up. They're always saying, oh, 30's the new 20 and all this shit. They're immature now. They're in arrested development by choice. So if anything, we should be putting it up a bit, not dropping it down. And the one thing I've made at the point before about regards voting age, if you're at a life crisis, if you suddenly lost your job and your wife left you and you had a health scare and you were struggling with it all, who would you ring for advice? Would you ring your 68-year-old mother? Or would you ring your 16-year-old nephew? Answers on a fucking postcard. That's analogous to what I'm talking about. Kids don't know anything, and everybody knows kids don't know anything. Nicola Sturgeon and Keir Starmer and Jezza and all the other commie rats know that kids don't know anything because none of them turn to the 16 and 17-year-old nieces and nephews or children if they have a problem. They go to the older and the wiser. So they know it. They're just rat bags. And doing it out of malice. They know it. They know it. You know it. I know it. Shouldn't be dropping the vote. They should be putting it up.
Well, as I say, that's why I wanted Paz on, because the 2 years were military and stuff, and you've both done tours here. I think you done a tour in Iraq and Afghanistan.
I did 2 Iraq, 2 Afghanistan, and South Armagh. Went to Bandit country.
But Paz was, I think he only went to Iraq before he retired. He was only 8 years in the military, and then he was 11 years in the prison service. And when he came out of the prison service, he thought to himself, I want to join the police. Now, who's more qualified to be a policeman? An ex-soldier, an ex-prison officer in the police force. He would have my vote every day.
Yeah.
You know? But
so they don't want him. They don't want him. I know loads of good bootnecks who went to be coppers, and they never want him. Because they want black disabled roller lesbians that are scared of their own shadow. That's what they want. That's what I'm saying. They do it. It's on purpose. It's not a coincidence that nothing works anymore. It's all done on purpose. Because if they fuck everything up, they'll finally get the glorious revolution. It's so obvious. It's why it pisses me off with the inflation and the economy now. They spent 3 years telling us Crossmaglen, I went to Crossmaglen.
Yeah,
Falkhill, Crossmaglen, Besbrook, all of the nice, wonderful places in South Armagh, fucking shitholes. And they spent 3 years. I was saying this years ago. They were advocating for policies that they knew would bankrupt us, and they were doing it because they knew it would bankrupt us. This is what it's child's play to see it. Liberal, socially liberal, left-wing, old-school lefties and commies are supposed to be happy to take risks. Conservatives are supposed to be risk-averse. That's the old adage. Everybody knows this. It's personality traits. And for some reason, they were all going, oh, no, we can't take any risks. We've got to lock everybody in for as long as possible. Oh, we can't take any risks. Got to keep the kids at home for as long as possible. They do it to fucking tank the economy on purpose, and now the economy's tanking. They're going, look now, look what Liz Truss has done to the economy. It was 3 years of policies that you advocated: print more money, lock everybody in, fuck up the economy. And this is what I'm telling you. The reason you just have to take it with amusement is because it's on purpose. They do everything on purpose. They fucked up the economy on purpose. They fucked up the pandemic response on purpose. They fuck up the NHS on purpose. They fuck up the police service and the schools and the justice system on purpose. Because it's only when you get wide-scale civil unrest, you get the glorious revolution they all want so much. So they're fucking it all up on purpose, so you just have to laugh about it.
Do you remember a couple of years ago, the Black Lives Marches in London, and the cops were in their white shirts with no body armour, fuck all else on, and they ran away.
Yeah, I did see the footage, I remember.
Some mounted policewoman got really badly hurt.
Yeah, and loafed the side, didn't she? I remember seeing it.
Now, the veterans came out to protect the statues. And what did they face them with? Full riot gear.
Oh, kick the shite out of them. Yeah, I know. It's like I said, it's on purpose. On purpose. That bloke who had a piss in the street, and it was like near the plinth where one of the coppers got killed. Instant jail. It was like, do not pass go, straight to the neck. If he was a Pakistani diddling a fucking 8-year-old, you got to get a £50 fine. Right. So it's laughable. It's laughable, and everybody can see it.
It's all on purpose.
It's nearly noon, mate. I'm gonna have to fuck off.
Right.
That's an hour and a half flew by there. It's because you get me wound up, and then I just start ranting, and then the time flies.
Well,
time flies when you're having fun.
Here, it's been brilliant, sir, and I really appreciate you coming on. I was hoping to get Paz on because I wanted to talk about your military service here and across the water and stuff. But if one of the mods would like to put Matt's YouTube channel in, I would implore you to go and watch him because he's as funny as fuck. He has me rolling on the chair at night when he's on. And the crowd that follow him in there, I mod for him. So there's no fucking about. But the crowd in there are mostly Americans, a lot of British. There's a few, I don't know.
I think there's more Brits than Americans.
Yeah, more Brits.
They get a good crowd.
I go through that algorithm thing to see where everybody's watching me from, and most people are watching me from England and Scotland, and a few Americans, and a fair amount of Australians too, for some reason. They seem to like what I say. But just before you go, I want to see your reaction to this. This was Paz today.
So students has poured her own and piss over a memorial of Captain Sir Tom Moore. Now, the reason she says she's done this is because she doesn't want Britain to use private jets. Now, surely, I mean...
No, you've seen that?
Yep, I've seen it. I watched it this morning.
The problem with Britain using private jets.
She wants to be a doctor. if you were ill, would you go to that woman to be seen?
She wants to be a doctor, so she's got a steady supply of human shit to throw on people's monuments. I'll tell you what, right? You know what I'm going to say? I'm not as outraged as some are, because I also think it's somewhat infantile the way we turn Captain Tom into the fucking national hero that we didn't shut up about for 6 weeks. But I will say that to do something so fucking disgusting means the silly bin should be getting nicked. And again, why do we let them get away with it? I always tell you this, compared to you and most of the people who watch me, I am a bit of a wet centrist. I don't leap to judgment on a lot of issues, but that is definitely nick it territory. I'm not saying like some of the outraged ones, you know, the old Peter Hitchens readers, fucking hell, jailer. I don't think I'd lock her up for a month for that, but she should instantly be getting arrested, charged, and prosecuted. And I can't believe she's not in a fucking cell already.
See,
it's ludicrous.
I hate labels, Matt, and most people would label you like a sevnet because you've lived in different places and you've lived amongst different races of people. They would refer to me as an ethnonet because I live amongst only white people, and that status quo we're quite happy with. You know, I think in our last census we were 98.6% of our own population. We have Chinese here, we have the odd Indian restaurant, bits and pieces like that there, but we don't have a mass influx of them, you know.
Yeah.
So they would call me an ethno-nat. I don't like them labels because you and me agree on so much, but we're civilized to disagree on the stuff that we disagree on. We're civilized enough to have a reasonable conversation about it. You know,
Yeah.
like I love Paz to bits. I've followed him for years. And after he made a donation on his channel one night, I said something in the chat and he called me a Nazi. You know, and I invited him on here and he was quite happy to come on, but he had to work. So, but anyway, I'd like to thank you for coming on. And if everybody can drop an AB in the chat, I'm going to let Matt go, and then I have a couple of videos for you to watch, which have been sent to me by Bonnie Ladd to hopefully promote his channel.
I'll check him out. I've never heard of him. I will check him out.
I'll send you the link. Bonnie Ladd's doing some great work, but he's very undersubbed. You know, I see Chris Dangerfield, his numbers is going up, but even Matt's numbers is treble what Dangerfield's is. But Dangerfield, before his problems, was all about the same key. You know, he has had 4, 5, 6, 700 people. Depends who he's had on as guests.
Oh, the strangle anybody right to centre, anyone. I mean, my channel's ridiculous. When I have a stream, because I've got a loyal audience, I get 350. I get a lot of people. If YouTube was actually the meritocracy they claim it is, your numbers would be way higher, but they strangle you. They don't show you to anybody when you don't agree with their politics, and that's just the way of it. But fuck them, right? You've just got to crack on. You don't do it for the money. You do it because you've got convictions and you actually believe what you said. So who cares, right? We'll just keep on keeping on. And but yeah, thanks for having me on. We'll do it again soon.
Hopefully we'll get this on as well.
I love having a rant in public.
It's quality. Yeah, time having a rant.
All right.
I'll talk to you later, bud.
See you later, mate. Cheers. Thanks for having us. Take it easy.
Take it handy. Right, folks, I'm going to finish out with some stuff that Bonnie Ladd sent me, so you can drop your comments in the chat and just tell me what you think. He sent me about 3 videos here. They're about 2 minutes long each, and then we'll end out with the usual massive Viking. There we go. Drop that.
Seasons come and go.
Right, next one for you is this one. Now drop your thoughts and comments in and tell me what you think. Right, folks, the last one I have for you, and then we'll close it all up, is this from Bonnie Ladd. It's slightly different, and it'll probably get a different reaction, but here it goes.
Black History Month is an important opportunity to learn about the many enduring stories of London's black communities. Some chapters are painful to recount, many are inspiring to discover, but all must be heard. Shamefully, black men and women have dealt with racial injustice and inequality for generations in London. The disproportionate impact of the pandemic and the cost of living crisis on London's black communities show how the effect of that legacy is still felt today. I also know recent events, including the shooting of Chris Carver, have been extremely traumatising. As a city and as a society, we clearly need to take stock, as well as continue to shine a light on the huge contribution black communities have made to our city through the ages. Together, we can help write the next chapter for London, one that is anti-racist and free from intolerance and discrimination. This Black History Month, I want to thank Black Londoners for everything you've done to enrich London life.
Good old sad act cunt. Turns London into an absolute shithole. Right, folks, I'm going to say good night and God bless, and I'm going to play you out with a new one that Sense Communum made up for me. Next week, we will have our co-host back, Jack London. He has returned. He's been working and working and working, and every time he comes home, he falls asleep, because he hadn't worked in 4 years, and you know what that toll's like on your body, going back to work after such a long layoff. So, good night, God bless, or if you're like me, Odin bless.